All right, cool, guys. Good morning once again. And today we're continuing from where we stopped. And we're in the last section of the project management training. Where did we start from? If you remember, guys, we did initiation. We went on to do what? Planning. We moved on to doing what? Execution. Good. And then the next one was what? Keep the team on track. That was yesterday. So initiation, planning, execution, keep the team on track. Then today we're going to talk about something that sometimes it's very easily overlooked, but which we want to enjoin you never to overlook them, which is keeping the business in mind. Now, the very first thing I'm going to bring to your table this morning is the fact that I don't know if any of you have read the story about Motorola. Has anyone read about Motorola, how they failed, how the company failed? Anyone? Okay, that's fine. For my quiet students, it's on mute. What's on mute, Mawa?
No, at the start of the class, you were talking, but we couldn't hear you.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Okay, that's cool. Okay, now, if you've not read the story of Motorola, I would enjoin you. I sent one of the books I wanted you guys to read. I'll send the next one, the picture, to you later. But if you've not ever had the time to read the story of Motorola, please find time and go engage with it. Motorola was investing a lot. They were trying to produce the next wave of phones. They made a lot of investment, and they did not realize that that product they were bringing to the market will not sell. It was supposed to be, it was designed to be a phone that you could make calls literally anywhere, even in space. But guess what? This phone was going to be as big as a briefcase. By the time Motorola was done building that phone, something happened. They were only able to sell one copy of that phone, only one. And all the investment and what do you call it? Investment and time that was put in to build that product all became a waste. Now, the question is, what happened? Motorola went into administration and the company was sold off in different, it was a very big company. If you know their story, it was a very big company. And part of Motorola today is what you have as Lenovo. So a Chinese company got to buy some part of 1/3 of Motorola investment. And then the company used to be called Legend Chinese Computers. So they bought into Motorola and they are now producing laptops. Sorry. Sorry, I'm having a cold. My voice is not very good today. Okay, so they bought into Motorola and they're building the Lenovo brand. Now, why are we talking about these issues as a project manager? You need to be aware that not minding how laudable your project seems to be, perhaps to onlookers, perhaps to friends, you must ensure that you do not undermine the business. Now, if you've also been following the stories around banks or banking, you know, banks, insurance, and finance firms have very strong regulations around them. The regulations are so strong that sometimes when they make a mistake, the penalty could be so high, you know, and because the penalties are really so high, it can completely undermine the profit lines of the banks or financial institutions. So they are actually enjoined to really stay away from non-compliance to regulations. Now, I said something, I said, sometimes the penalties really will cut in deep into the profit of that bank. And some banks could even go as far as going into administration because of penalties of their actions. I'm sure if you guys were around in if you were old enough to be in the world between 2008 and 2009, where you heard about the Enron stuff that caused the 2009 recession, you would know it started out from a finance house. That's how regulations can bring you to your knees. Okay, so that's why we are saying that whatever you do, no matter how laudable it is or how you think it's laudable, you must do everything not to what? Undermine the business of the organization. Okay, so we take a journey today. Now, when I want to do everything as a PM, I want to make sure that I don't undermine the organization. I don't undermine the, what do you call it? The business. What are the 5 things that I need to wake up on or sleep with every day, go to bed with, wake up with every day as I manage a project to ensure that I don't undermine the business itself that I'm being given to manage? The very big first one, very big on the table, is compliance requirement. The need to adhere strictly to compliance, which is regulations. The next one is the need to evaluate and always ensure that I'm constantly delivering value. Now, the next one is the fact that you must evaluate and address internal and external business environments. Internal and external business environment. A very good one in this regard was Nokia, if you've been following the telecom industry too. You see, when phones were taking a dive upward, Nokia felt they got a strong market share. Let's not even use Nokia, let's use Kodak. Kodak, I don't know if you know the camera company, Kodak. Kodak was the first company to get an inroad into what? Digital photography. I'm sure you don't know that. In their lab was where a scientist found digital photography, in Kodak's lab. But Kodak, they resisted change. They felt, we've been doing this business of, is it the black film they call it? You know, those old model cameras. I don't know if you guys know those old model cameras. They used to come with negatives. You go and wash them and all that. Guys, have you seen something like that? Come on, help me out in class. Has anyone seen it? Am I alone here? Okay, that's fine. I'm the oldest. Hello? If you can't even talk, I can appreciate chats at least to make me know you are hearing what I'm saying. Okay, film cameras, yes, I've seen it. Okay, Joshua has seen it. Okay, that's fine. I don't, in case when you get time, when you have the time, go look out for the old cameras, how they used to be. They used to be called filmed cameras. I don't know how they used to call them, but you had to go, they will print into a negative, and then you go and wash them with chemicals or something. And then, okay, a few folks have seen it. Martina says she's seen it. I guess a few other folks. Mawa says, I've seen it in movies. All right, Mawa, go explore it. Look on YouTube, you'll find a few of them. Now, digital photography was here and was found in the lab of Kodak itself. But Kodak never believed, they never believed that it was possible that it's going to be the next big thing in photography. So what did they do? They put the guy down. They kept telling the guy, they wrote those things off. When digital photography came into the world, Kodak was left behind. If you know Kodak in the 90s, if you know Kodak in the 80s, if you know Kodak in the 70s, they were one of the biggest companies. Go and look at Kodak, the buildings of Kodak in the 70s and 80s across the world. You would know what a company Kodak was. But if you see Kodak today, they've diminished to, they're just a pretty basic company at the moment. I think someone has done a documentary on what I'm telling you. You can go look it up on YouTube. Now, They were not aware of the external changes that were happening in the business circle. If you think around your sector, you might see one or two examples of what I'm saying. You need to be aware of all the changes happening both internally and externally in your environment. And that's why for most of us, like you and I, we are lifelong learners. We are always looking to learn, to improve, to get better. Why? Because changes are happening at the speed of light. Now, the next one is you have to be willing to support organizational change. Now, you see, you walk in, like the Kodak experience I'm talking about. Kodak was not willing to support organizational change to transit from the negative photography to what? The digital photography. So, but you have to be willing to do that. And the last one, which kinds of superintends over every other one, it's your commitment and the organization's commitment to what? Employ continuous process improvement. It means we are continually going to improve day in, day out. All right. Let's start with the very first, dealing with what? Compliance or managing compliance requirements. What is compliance? Compliance are safety standards. That's the word now, safety. It could be safety for you. It could be safety for the client. It could be safety for other stakeholders. We must meet by law. In this regard, there's got to be no cutting of corners. These are safety standards we must meet by law. And in this regard, there has to be no cutting of corners. A very good example again is, let's all reflect on, I think in our first or second class, and we're trying to build Bojo Arab. You know, when you're trying to do a building, one thing you would have to take cognizance of is that there are regulatory standards for building. Now, those regulatory standards have been built up over the years to ensure that those buildings don't collapse or become harmful to others for any reason whatsoever. So because of this, we must, all of us, you, I, as a project manager, we must ensure to stick to compliance requirements. Now, most projects, as they were, most project solutions are subject to legal or regulatory requirements or constraints. I've already touched on that already. When I touched on the fact that, for instance, when you're building a house, there are loads of regulatory requirements when you're building a house. And most projects have, most solution projects, and also the solutions they bring. Let's use the project of building a house, for example. There are what? Regulatory requirements tied to buildings. That's why when you are building a proper, when you're making a building, you often see people from the government come around to do what? Inspect what you are doing. Why do they come around to do those inspections? But particularly if it's going to be a public building where people are going to be coming in and going out of it. The government's first priority is to maintain, to keep safe the lives of people. So because of that, their first responsibility, every government across the world, that's their primary responsibility, that the lives of people are not undermined. They will come to regulate the building so that no one will come into that building 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and then perhaps the building collapses, and then there is a loss of life and other things that could follow. Now, The next thing you need to know is that you need to identify compliance issues. You need to also track them. When you've identified what are the possible compliance issues, you need to track both your activities, your processes, and your personnel to ensure that they don't undermine or do things that will undermine compliance requirements throughout the course of your project. Now, you also need to remember that this might include what? Requirements for specific practice. Let's say in terms of in some areas in the city, you may have things like people, the houses in this area should not be above 5 meters, for example, really. That cannot be too correct. But let's say 10 feet or whatever. And why do they say houses should not be more than 10 feet? Perhaps they don't want any other person looking above the other person. For security reasons, they have their reasons, really. So that's in terms of, that's a specific requirement. So this might include requirement for specific practice. Privacy laws. I use that again for the building. Perhaps there are things they don't want people to what? Maybe there is a sensitive government property around that area. They don't want anyone building any high rise that can oversee that government property. Because if you have a high rise, it might oversee that building, and you can, from your high rise, monitor a government property in that region. So they stop you from doing that. So for sensitive reasons. All right. Now, how do you go about identifying and complying to what? Compliance. How do you, let's start by me. I'm involved in a project. How do I go about identifying issues related to compliance? Now, before we go into, there are 3 areas that you will go spend time to what? Identify compliance issues. But before we go into those 3 areas, what you need to also remember is that compliance related risk, to be fair, I would like to say that compliance is actually a subset of risk, because non-compliance could bring issues. So it's a risk. And like every risk, that's why it's called a compliance related risk. I use the word subset, meaning that there are other kinds of risk. I hope that makes sense to everyone. Now, so compliance, it's a subset of risk. Now, just like with risk, you have to identify it. You have to identify a risk. The next thing you need to do is what? Give every risk a risk owner. So I'm going to assign the risk owner to someone, meaning that you are the one that must monitor to ensure that this risk does not happen. And if it happens, you are the one to take immediate charge and resolve it. I must also be able to establish what is the impact of these realized risk. If this risk happens, if it crystallizes, what is the impact? And the last one is, what will be the risk response should in case this risk crystallizes? Now, so how do you go about identifying areas where compliance concerns could arise? The very first way you're going to do that is through the use of what? Risk registers. I want to believe every one of us will remember what risk registers are. Risk registers are simply the register where you document all the identified risk. And there are other things that you capture on the risk register. You can review the planning module again. You will see a lot in that regard. So use the risk register. Now, in the risk register, you would see all the risks that were identified. And remember, we touched on the fact that you could actually go ahead to categorize risk, so to help you understand them more. So the type of risk. So now in this regard, let's say that this is a compliance risk. So you already have those group of risks already that you've identified. So use the risk register to identify compliance concerns. Also validate legal and regulatory compliance for deliverables continuously. I'll touch on that. Okay, I've said about using risk registers. The next thing you're going to use is what you call the configuration management system. What is the configuration management system? You see, everything that we've been doing before in the last classes, you see, they're coming back again in the last two classes, if you notice. The configuration management system is a system that manages issues that regard what? Versioning and control. It manages all project artifacts. Now, if you remember the configuration management system, when a change happens, when a change request comes and a change request is approved, configuration management does the work of ensuring that the approved changes is documented in a way that keeps only a version, that keeps a version of the old one while keeping the new version at the same time. So it deals with a lot of things about versioning, tracking, and control. Now, because you already understand what configuration management really is, the next thing that you're going to take to heart immediately is to begin to look at the compliance risk that could be associated with us moving from version 1 to version 2. If there are, I need to escalate it so that we all take heed immediately. The third way you identify compliance requirements is through the use of what? Variance analysis. What is variance analysis? Variance analysis is the measurement of actual in relation to what was planned. Now, if there be a gap between actual and what was planned, then that could be what? A trigger that might tell you that, come on, that's a red flag. There might be some compliance issues if we don't meet the project deadlines, both in terms of cost, quality, and what have you. Particularly in the 4 areas: cost, schedule, scope, and quality. So those are the 3 ways you identify compliance requirements. How do you classify compliance? So you've identified all the compliance issues. How do you classify them into groups, perhaps, so that you can assign managers to them? There is no one size fits all when it comes to what? Compliance. There is no one size fits all. However, what you get is this. There's what you call the industry and solution scope. You could actually, every industry have their sets of compliance concerns. If you are in the building industry, there will be compliance concerns for you. So in doing your project, it will be interesting to see you highlight some of the compliance concerns in your own industry that you are trying to keep a finger on so that they don't crystallize. Don't think about anything big. Just look at there's some compliance concerns in every industry. Now, whether you're looking at it by industry or by solution. So if you're building a house, that's a solution now. There are compliance concerns around building a house. There are compliance concerns about building a car. Yeah. Now, and also you have what you call the legal and the regulatory exposure. Now, depending on where you're doing business, if you're doing business in Europe, you might, and then let's say you're earning as a worker in Europe, your taxes, or in the US, your taxes are going to be about 25 to 40% of whatever you earn. Now, if you're doing the same business in, let's say in Africa, for instance, there are different ways you can do business in Africa without paying that amount of tax. That's, you see the dynamics now. So, but in Europe, you will have them, there will be pocket of footholds to catch you if you do that. But here in Africa, it's a bit flexible about how you do business. And you can get away from paying that high taxes if you have the right mechanism in place. So these are unique to environments, very unique to environments. So those are called legal and regulatory exposure. Now, next thing we're going to talk about now is, so we said quality risk, safety risk. Now, these are different sets of risk you may want to compare. Quality risk, quality compliance issues, safety compliance issues. Like if you're in the building and the construction industry, wearing a what do you call them? The headgear, what do you call them? Safety helmets, that's the word. It's very important for you when you're working in construction. That's safety for that particular industry. But if you are in the marine business or project in the marine, a safety helmet might not be what is important to you. Rather, what will be important to you is a life vest. Now, workplace health, process risk, corrupt practices, there are compliance issues around those issues. Environmental risk, social responsibility. So likewise, if you're doing business in some communities, there are some social responsibility you need to fulfill. And if you are doing business in some other environment, you may not necessarily have to fulfill those social responsibilities. These are all compliance issues that you need to pay attention to. It's good to report compliance. It's a good practice, very good practice to report compliance. Now, if you are following, the trend, the green trend going on in the world, along with the finances of big companies, the Nestles of our time, the Mobiles of our time, the Chevrons of our time, and Nike and all that, they go into what they call ethics and sustainability practices. And that's always a journal of its own, attached to their financials every year, sometimes printed on its own. What are they doing? They are telling the world, we are compliant. They're reporting their compliance. So what do they put on those stuff? They put their work performance, what they are doing, with project activities, how they are helping improve the lives of people, the deliverables they are churning out, and the overall progress. They also sometimes will spot a few things about the risk status, that, yeah, we're still having this problem, but we're looking to overcome them by the next year. Now, compliance-related risks include risk management actions, test and validation activities, audits, and other actions to verify deliverable compliance. Can I take a break and ask if you understood up to where I am? Anyone?
All good, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Did I see Mosope's feedback said understood? All right, cool.
It's clear for me.
All right, it's clear for you. Thank you. Okay, so we're good. What are the threats to compliance? What are the threats to compliance? Now, the first threat to compliance is when a new vulnerability is identified. Let me give you an example. Nothing comes to my mind right now, but now let me give you an example. If you follow the story around Nike and Bangladesh, Nike produces most of their wares in Bangladesh, and there were times that they've been sued by the green wall people and all that for using of underage people to make their shoes, their clothes, and all that. You see, the fact that Nike could actually be an ethical company. I don't know. I'm not vouching for anyone. However, in the laws that they stipulate, they could say we want people from age 18 to be here, which is fine. But how about I am age 27, for instance, and as I'm going to work for Nike, I want to make more money. So I take along with me my son and say, come with me. I will show you the work you will be doing when you are with me. So you may think that my son is just there because I don't have a help at home, only for you to get to realize that I'm using him to work in that factory. And the more things if I'm paid based on the number of accomplishments I have done or the number of shoes I have sewn, I would end up getting more money than every other of my colleagues in that place. By the time a few of my colleagues get to find out the secret that which I'm using to make more money, they also would do what? Bring their son. That's a new vulnerability has been introduced. People are deliberately trying to what? Cut corners and create problems. Now it's not Nike's fault again, but people are beginning to do things that would undermine the whole system. The next thing that becomes a threat to compliance is when there is a change in the legal or regulatory requirement. That's very clear. Whenever there is a change in a legal or regulatory requirement, it could bring a threat to compliance. And the worst case is this: you're working on a project, a change has happened, and you are not aware of it. That creates more complications for you. Now, the third one is error in testing and validation to confirm compliance. You know, because you are someone who is hardworking and you are trying to ensure that you meet all compliance regulations and needs, you could fall into the trap of making a mistake. Maybe while you were testing and doing the validation, you did not see a mistake. And when an external auditor comes, they identify that mistake and you have to pay for it. So those are what threats to compliance. The last two becomes what? Error or bugs in deliverables. I'm also sure most of you may have heard of the Toyota recall, I think in 2018 or 2017, when Toyota had to recall most of their cars. And you see, for every car they recalled, it was not a cheap deal for Toyota because it's going to be expensive endeavor to recall every car you've sold between a period. Why? Because of an error or a bug in deliverable. Why did they recall it? Someone noticed that there was a breach when it comes to what? Compliance that was causing accidents and killed people, and they were sued for it. And they had to recall every car. You know, recalling the cars means you are paying the people that you sold the cars to, or you give them brand new cars. So those are the problems, the threats to compliance. Now, the last one is ignorance of the law, which is never an excuse. Lack of awareness of compliance requirements. A very good way to mitigate all of this is by obtaining sign-offs and approvals. So as a PM, you understand that there are regulations in your industry. Ask yourself, who gives the sign-offs and the approvals for these regulations? Go to them. They have information you don't know. Show them what you have in mind and get their sign-offs on it. If they sign it off, they cannot come back tomorrow to say, you did not meet requirements. No, they signed, their signature is there. That secures you. So identify the stakeholders that have to give those approvals, go to them, show them everything, and get their word, sign off and approval. And the good thing is this: if you go for the sign of an approval, they may catch some things that you may not see, and they will show it to you. So an early benefit is that the potential threat to non-compliance will be saved from it when you go for those sign-off meetings. All right. What are the other ways that you mitigate the threat of non-compliance? Now, one of them is to identify and manage legal, regulatory, and other compliance requirements. You need to review, spend time. This is painstaking. In many organizations, the PMO handles this for you. The PMO, that's, you know what the PMO is, I believe. That was our first class. And in some other organizations, they have a full set of a compliance team that looks at everything about compliance. If you work in the finance sector, you will know that you cannot run away from it is a full compliance team that looks at every detail of what happens in the finance sector. All right, it's also the same thing for those in construction. You would find the same experience. Now, so review all the business rules that constrains the project solution. What are all the business rules that guides us? And all those rules will also, they will open you up to what? Likelihoods of non-compliance. Review them, they will show you things, parts of the potential solution subject to compliance requirements. Now, in some projects, it's not everything in that project that is subject to what? Compliance requirement. It's not everything. I can't think of anyone at the moment. It's not coming into my head. But look, let's use for example, Pampers, making of Pampers. I'm not particularly sure the shape of your Pampers will mean anything. However, the materials you use for Pampers will be very important to the government, because you could use a material that could affect children and become an adverse and bring an adverse situation to families. So the materials you use, so the parts that will worry them, it's not how much it absorbs, because you could say your absorption is based on price, but the materials you use will be very important and very key. So review those parts. What is the scope of the compliance requirement? Sometimes you have a scope of requirement. Review the entire scope and check that you meet all of them. And then also identify, we touched on that earlier, the stakeholders responsible for reviewing, approving, and signing off non-compliance. Identify them and go to them. So generally what you know about compliance is what? You need to identify every point of non-compliance. You need to track for every point of non-compliance, and then you need to ensure you meet all compliance requirements. And one way to meet compliance requirements is to do what? Get sign-offs and approvals. All right, let's see. Another way to mitigate non-compliance requirements is through quality control. You see, when it comes to quality control, quality, it's a very big word because it encapsulates literally everything around compliance. The quality of a building would encapsulate the quality of the substructure. It will also encapsulate the kind of materials you should use, both for roofing and for the main buildings and all that. Same thing, a quality of the Pampers would also encapsulate things like the materials you use, the shape of the cuts, and all whatnot. So that's quality control. So understanding what the quality is will help you to mitigate non-compliance. So establish a clear quality management plan. I'm sure all of you know what quality management plan is. It's the plan that describes how applicable policies, procedures, and guidelines that will be implemented so that we can get what? A decent or the best of quality. That was going back to planning class. Now use quality control outputs to confirm deliverables and process compliance and identify needs for corrective actions. So when you are benchmarking what you are doing in line with quality control, you will be able to find out, are there corrective actions that I need to bring to the table? And if there are not, then I'm safe. If there are, I need to implement them almost immediately. The third one is establish project tolerance. You know what tolerance is? And initiate corrective actions yourself or quickly escalate non-compliance beyond the tolerance limit. A tolerance limit, you remember, it's like a band. So if the product has 80 to 90%, at least 90%, if the student scores from 80 to 100, she will be allowed to go to the next class. Tolerance limit. It means she can move between 80 and 100. That's the range. But anything below that, he will not be allowed to go to the next class. There's a tolerance there. You have to establish what the tolerance is. So anything within that tolerance is accepted, but if it goes below that tolerance, then it has to be escalated. That is a compliance issue going on here. Leverage effective quality tools and technique to assess for quality deliverables and identify improvement, corrective actions, or defect repairs required. This also is something that is very industry specific. Every industry has quality tools and techniques. So you have to find out what are the tools and techniques for the industry you want to work in or you currently work in. Assess the quality deliverables. What is quality for my industry? Identify if there are rooms for improvement, corrective actions, and defect repairs, and put that to use to get the best of quality and of compliance too. All right. Still about quality, using quality to find the best, get the best of compliance. With everything that you have on this page, read through them is exactly the same thing. Identify, validate, provide feedback, and possible approaches. The thing you need to do is quality audit. You've said that already. Audit the quality to find out that it conforms with compliance. Quality audit. Now, but what I want to spend time for us here right now is what we call sampling. Sampling. When you're doing quality audit, if quality audit can't inspect every product or deliverable, use sampling to identify quality issues. Now, think about it this way, that we're in a factory that produces Pampers for kids. You and I know that it might be a bit difficult. It might be, I'm not saying it is. Now, it might be a bit difficult for us to be able to inspect every product or deliverable. Because it might be a bit difficult to inspect each and every Pampers produced, we might do what we call attribute sampling. So to reduce cost, you do sampling. What is sampling? You take a few, maybe like 10% of the production, and test the 10. So if the 10% conforms totally, then you escalate that possibly every other thing that you've done is correct. So you look at the degree of conformance or non-conformance. Now, the very first thing you do, the first type of sampling is called attribute sampling. Now, this is simply like when you say it's either black or white. It's either black or white. It's either it does it or it doesn't do it. So it either conforms or does not conform. That's when your samples either conform or not conform. You said, oh, they conform or they don't conform. The other one is what? A variable sampling, where you're not looking forward to them conforming. And let's use Pampers for example. If the level of absorption, if we use 10 Pampers to test for the rest for the whole 5 million Pampers in the world that we've produced. Now we're looking at what's the level of absorption, of each Pampers. So we start pouring water on it. If the Pampers can absorb between 10 liters to 15 liters of water, between 10 or 15, then we can say that's a pass mark. So it's like a band. That's variable. The result is rated on a continuous scale that measures the degree of conformity. You are measuring the degree of conformity. So anything below 10 will not be accepted. So it means we might have to go back and review that production line. Something has gone wrong. But if it can stay between 10 and 15, then it's fine. That production line is perfect. That's sampling for you. All right, escalation. It's pretty much what it says it is. It is you escalating whatever has happened. Determine whether a non-compliance issue is within the project's tolerance level. If yes, then work with the team to propose a solution. If it is within the tolerance level, then your team can solve it. But if it goes beyond your own level, beyond the tolerance level you have, let's say we said anything below 10 is accepted. Everything below 10 is accepted. You know, but when it gets above 10, you need to escalate it so that your superiors get to know. Remember when we're dealing with risk, we said whether it's negative or a positive risk, there are two things that you must do. What are the two things? Who remembers? Who remembers? Two things you must do, whether it is negative or it's positive, there are two things you must do. Who remembers? You have to accept the risk and you must escalate the risk. Guys, don't forget. All right. The next thing we're going to talk on, we've discussed compliance at length. And I guess you all understand why compliance is important and how to manage compliance in risk. We're going to talk to the next thing, which is what? Evaluate and deliver benefit and value. This is not strange to us. In our class yesterday, we talked a great deal about what? Benefits, delivering that benefits, project benefits and value. We also touched on it during execution. So what is business value? Again, is the net quantifiable benefit, net quantifiable benefit derived from a business endeavor. The benefits you derive from an endeavor. These benefits may be what? Tangible. An example of tangible is what? Money, finance, money. Or intangible, and even both. What's an example of intangible, if you remember from execution class again? Social capital. Social capital, you know? Now, or it could even be both. So you went for that meeting, you were paid for going, and you also made like 7 new friends there. You've gotten both. That's business value. Now, where are we in our whole discourse for today? We're talking about keeping the business in mind. And the next thing we've said after compliance is that we should manage and ensure we are delivering value. Because brothers and friends, if you don't deliver value, you would soon be a thing of the past. You know, look at what happened to BlackBerry. Great phone. It was doing well. When it came with its messenger, that was a lot of value. Literally, everyone jumped on it. Literally, everyone jumped on it. But when other apps came in that delivered more value than the messenger, everybody moves too. So you have to continuously make sure we're delivering value at a high level. Now, for us to deliver value, we must have a plan to do so. So we have the next 1 hour to wrap this up so that we can take questions and prepare for next weekend. Now, there are documents that we have to put together, we must put together. The first of the document that we must put together is called the Benefit Management Plan. What is the Benefit Management Plan? It talks about how benefits of a project will be derived and measured. So let's say, for example, for this class, we have to first and foremost, myself sitting with peers, we have to first and foremost sit back to this to ask ourselves, what will be the benefits that every person that comes to this class will be able to derive at the end of the class? And you see, it's not just at the end of the class you derive that benefit. Benefits are not only for the end, you can actually be deriving benefits per day. So for every day, at the beginning of every slide, you would see the metrics that we want you to cover to be able to know. If you understand those metrics for that day, then we have done our job. You know, that's benefit management plan. Now, in defining a benefit management plan, there are things that you are going to draw up. The very first one is what you call the target benefit. What is the target benefit for this class? It's the expected tangible and intangible business value that will be realized from that project. The first tangible benefit from this class you will get, it's an insight into the whole body of knowledge called project management. Another tangible one that we had identified is the fact that in case you want to revise or write an exam, are you seeing my screen? Is everyone seeing my screen? Hello? Are you seeing my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, all right, cool. Now, another one that we were able to look at was the fact that if you want to write an exam, even if it is 1 week after we finish, the knowledge that we've put together will help you to pass any project management exam. And also we looked at the fact that if in case you want a material that you can read easily, the slides should be easily readable for you as you go into what either work, business, or want to write an exam. Those are target benefits. Now, the next thing is what you call, oh God, that's it. Okay, strategic benefit alignment. Now, what is strategic alignment? How does the benefit itself aligns with the organizational business strategies? You know, you are doing a job you work for DHL. And what is DHL's work? Helping folks move things from one place to another. In any project that you are delivering for DHL, you're going to be thinking, how will this project and the benefits this project will bring help in the course of helping move parcels from point A to point B. That's what you call the strategic alignment. The next thing that the plan covers is the time frame. Time frame. Now, if you say, for my project, you will derive benefits at the end, I wouldn't really think you've done a robust thinking about your project. At every point, there should be milestones. Remember the word milestones when we're doing in planning, schedule planning. There should be a milestone in every project. At each milestone, there should also be benefits that can be derived at each milestone. So what is the time frame? Each benefit should have a time frame. Now, the benefit owners, who are the persons or group that monitors, records, and reports the benefits? Who are they? The metrics, how can we measure those benefits? And lastly, is the risk associated with delivering those benefits. All of these must be captured in the benefit management plan. Now I know that I need to have a benefit management plan for my project, which is really expedient. It's something I've really come to cherish, because before I just felt I'm going to deliver the project and that's it. So in preparing for your project, I would also love to see if you're using a milestone map or you're using a project schedule network. I would like to see, are there benefits that could have been derived at the different points on your schedule? You should point me to some of the benefits I'm deriving so that I know that you understand the idea of benefit management. Now that I know that it's not just about delivering a project, that there is more to it, I must also think about benefits. I'll stop here to say that you have to learn how to identify or analyze benefits. Now, how do we analyze benefits? There are three areas or points where benefits can be analyzed. It's not exactly reserved to those three areas alone, but let's touch on the three areas quickly. The very first one is the issue of what? Benefit cost analysis. You and me know that you are going to be spending money for a project. And whenever you're going to have to spend money, I'm sure you're supposed to be asking yourself the question, this money I'm putting into this business, what are the benefits I hope or I look to derive from this business? And at what points in my journey am I going to derive these benefits? That's a good conversation to have with yourself when you're about to invest money. So during the cost benefit analysis or the benefit cost analysis, that's exactly what you're doing. So what is the benefit cost analysis? A systematic approach to estimating the strength and the weakness of alternatives. You see, you're looking at, are there alternatives? Alternatives used to determine options which provide the best approach to achieving benefits while preserving savings, also called cost-benefit analysis. So I've said it already in very succinct terms. What are the benefits I'm going to derive for this money I'm going to spend? Sometimes you go into the asking questions like, okay, that's interesting, but let me also ask myself, can there be any other alternative? I want to buy a Nike sneakers, and it's $75, for instance. What benefits do I look to derive from it? If the benefits the Nike sneakers is giving can be gotten from me buying a Skechers for lesser amount, then why wouldn't I buy a Skechers for lesser amount? These are conversations you do during the cost benefit analysis. All right. The next point where you begin to spend time to evaluate benefit is when you are doing, I don't know which of my screens you guys are seeing though, but I believe you're seeing it. So you're seeing a screen at least. Someone said something. We can see your screen, but they are stuck on the same slide. Your screen is stationary. Which of the screen are you seeing? Can someone just stop read what he's seeing on my screen? Can someone talk about the screen that you're seeing? Which of my screens are you seeing?
Now we don't see
Benefit analysis.
anything.
Are you seeing, is it one now? Okay.
Now we see
No, now it's not.
benefit analysis.
Okay, cool. That's it. That's it. Okay. So I'm still there though. So the second one you're going to look at is during sprint reviews. During sprint reviews. What are sprint reviews? If you remember, guys, if every one of you remembers, there are 3 ceremonies of Agile. And the last of the ceremonies is what? Sprint reviews. At the end of every sprint, you are asking the question, what are the benefits that could be derived from these products? That's during sprint reviews. Another good time, so that's for Agile. Another good time also where you can derive benefit is through the use of demos. Demos, you know demos? Like you do a demo for something. So you're going to look and say, okay, this demo, what are the benefits that this will bring? That kind of conversation is what is happening at that point. We're trying to identify benefits. Now, the next thing the next time also where you identify benefits is also when you are doing release management. Now, you see, sprint reviews and demos are for Agile. Likewise, release management is for what? Predictive, though there are also demos for predictive. Release management is for predictive largely because at the end of a traditional project, there is a release of a product into the market. And most times, at that point, a product is released, but not that it is released. Let me give you an instance. When they completed building Bojo Arab, it was released into what? The market. At the end of the day, and even till today, the owners of Bojo Arab could be sitting back to ask themselves, what more can we make out of this building? What are the benefits we can derive? So they could start thinking about things like, okay, if someone wants to stay on the first floor, this is the value. If you want to go as high as the topest floor, this is the value. In short, even if you don't want to stay here, but you don't want to come for sightseeing, every time you come for sightseeing and we take you to the last floor, you pay a fee. Else, because it's a public building, people will just come free, go to the last floor, come up and come down again. So now, before you go up, you pay a fee, then you come down, then we take you there. So it's also what? An excursion facility. Make sense? I hope it does, guys. Okay. Now, let's go spend some time and dig into, before I dig into this area, I want to first ask you guys, is there anyone looking to write an exam here in this class? Before I dig into this area. It will be relevant for those who are not writing exams, but relevant for those who are looking to write any certification exam. Is there anyone who is looking to write an exam after now? Let's see that. Okay, Abdurrahman not, okay, but Joshua, no, I'm not, okay. Chanel is saying, okay, Chanel is saying it's a yes for her. Okay, so just one person who is eager about it. I'm not sure what exams we're talking about. Okay, no, Mawa, cool, all right, awesome. I just needed to have an idea about those who are looking into writing an exam and those who are not looking at writing. Perfect. Now, since most of the class is not looking at writing an exam, I'm going to just say this in brief. Now, exams, first of all, Martina said, I'm not sure which exam we're talking about. The exams here is to get certified as a project manager. If you want to get a certification exam around project management, then now, when we talked about, in the first class, we talked about what? Cost benefit analysis. Where did we go? Cost benefit analysis as one of the ways we analyze and identify benefits. Now, you see this cost benefit analysis, there are a number of ways. In this regard, there are 5 ways to really dig into cost benefit analysis. There are 5 ways. The 5 broad ways is solely for cost benefit. Now, what are the 5 broad ways? I'll tell you in a nutshell. One of them is called present value. The other one is called net present value. The third one is called return on investment. The fourth one is called internal rate of return. The fifth one is called net promoter score. For the benefit of most of the class, which are not really looking to write an exam, I just shared this with you. Let me give you a very simple way of understanding these things. Present value. If I have $1 now, and I can buy, okay, let's say $5, and I can buy the Big Mac. Now, in the next 10 years from now, that's 2032. If I have $5, can I buy a Big Mac? Does it make sense? Does it make sense? Guys, does it make sense? I want to get your feedback if it makes sense to you. Okay, if I have $10, it means I can buy 2 Big Macs. Don't confuse yourself, just understand that. If I have $10, I can buy 2 Big Macs. In 5 years or 10 years from now, I would only be able to buy 1 Big Mac. You know the Mac we're talking about, it's what do you call them? What the Big Mac for? The burger. The big burger I'm talking about by what's the company's name again? Guys, help me out. So the value, $10 I have today, $10 I have today will only mean the purchasing power of that $10 today is equivalent to a $5. Sorry, the purchasing power of a $10 in 10 years is equivalent to a $5 today. I hope, I don't know if that makes sense to you. I'm trying not to come. Yes, McDonald's, that's it. Thank you, Abdurrahman. Yeah. I have $10.
I understand.
You understand, Abi? I have $10 today.
Yes.
I'm able to buy 2 Big Macs from McDonald's. In 10 years from today, that same $10 will only buy 1 Big Mac. 1. What it means is that $10 today, it's equivalent to what? $5 in 10 years. So the present value of $10 today is the same thing as what? $5 in 10 years. I hope I'm not confusing you guys. Okay. I wouldn't spend so much time on that, particularly because I don't want to get into too deep with it's a very financial thing. Okay, Chanel says she's fine. Okay, now So just understand a few. I will only touch on a few. Present value, I'll touch on internal rate of return. Let's talk about return on investment. If I invest, okay, let me give you an example. If I invest $10 with you, and you tell me that in the next 10 years, okay, I invest $10 with Abdul Rahman, and Abdul Rahman tells me in exactly 10 years, I would give you $20. You know, he's not really doing me any favor. It might look like the money he's giving me is big, but it's not, he's not doing me any favor. Why? The value of $20 in 10 years is exactly the same thing with $10 today. So because I know that it's not like he's keeping my money for me, I'm preserving my value, I may not want to do that business with him. I might go to the next person, say Chanel, and ask Chanel, what business do you have I can invest in? So you're just shopping, looking for where you can get value for money. Now, the next one I'll talk about is return on investment. So I gave Abdul Rahman $10, and he told me that in 5 years, I'll give you $20. That's 100% return on investment. Double the amount. Let me stop there, and then I'll let you guys read the rest at your own time. It's pretty simple to understand, and they're actually not very technical, just because of the audience at the moment. I don't want to go too deep. But anyone who is going for an exam and you read and you don't understand, please buzz me. We can actually have a one-on-one meeting, but 30 minutes or 20 minutes, I will show you the whole financial around it. Okay, let's look at another one. A pretty simple one. This one, you get to find this one a lot. It's called A/B testing. This is you find it in really every industry. Even your friends do it. It's used in, what do you call it, in marketing, and to determine what users' preferences. So I could design, if you are into designs, graphic design, you can design two things. Maybe I asked you and said, come, I need a logo for my company. And then you design one, another logo, and then you now put it on your social media and ask friends, kindly help me vote for which of these I should use for this company. What you are doing is looking for what user preference. That's an A/B testing. So the next time you hear the word A/B testing, just know that I know it. It's just marketing gimmick used for what? Testing user preference. Now, it's the whole idea is people will vote and they will tell you their reasoning behind their vote. You will find out the gaps. So if there are things you can move from the other one and then spice the other one and bring out a final copy, or you just go with one of them, basically, then you just do that. So that's A/B testing. That's also how you identify value, by asking questions. The last of them is simulation. Simulation. And there are, once you hear the word simulation, if you are preparing for an exam, once you hear the word simulation, just know it's what they call, it's computer driven, the computer model. Now let's read what it says. It's a technique that models the word combined effect of uncertainties to evaluate their potential impact on the objective. Now this happens a whole lot in sports. If you follow any sport, you will see that there are companies that are involved in what? Simulation. They simulate a match, they simulate a game, they simulate a race to see who can win. And what are they doing? They bring in a lot of factors. Perhaps the timings that you've been winning races, your age, your health, things. And they simulate and they say this match, it is the possible score for this match. That's simulation. And the bigger one is the Monte Carlo, but they are literally the same thing. A computer model is iterated many times. So they do it once, they do it twice. At some point, you see a pattern emerges. A pattern emerges, and that pattern helps to tell you what is likely to win. So the benefit of that particular product or solution. All right. So let's continue. Okay, I think I missed out. There's one more before. One more. It's called the decision tree. Decision tree really is exactly what you see there. So we're asking ourselves, should I accept a new job offer? Look at the way the guy goes, accept. So they said salary, he starts by what? Testing, salary at least 50,000, yes. If it is less than that, no. Commute to work, more than 1 hour, yes. So I will decline. You see what the guy is doing? So that way he's testing the value. Why would this work? If the salary is less than 50,000, he has calculated and seen that he can't even pay his rent. By the value cannot even support him. So he's saying, no, I won't even go here. You've already analyzed to know that if it is, let's say 50,000 on the dot, but your commute is more than what? 1 hour, then the train tickets alone will what? Finish your investment. You will go broke again, and you don't really like the stress. That's a simple example of a decision tree. I hope that makes sense to everyone. It's a diagramming and calculation technique for evaluating the implication of a chain of multiple actions in the presence of uncertainties. Now, what happens here in a project management setting when they're using this to identify benefits is this. There are a lot of numbers, a lot of numbers comes into the play here. So they look at why they can't take anything more than 50,000 naira, and then they begin to analyze them one after the other, and they come up with something. All right. Now, just so you know, some of these savvy words, when you speak with your friends, the next time they speak and they talk about the word discipline agile, you don't need to sound like, oh, I'm not even aware about that concept. There is nothing big here. Now, if you remember our conversation when we spoke about agile methodology, we said that there are 4 values of agile. Who remembers the 4 values? Anyone that is confident enough, come up. Come up, anyone, feel free. Okay, I wouldn't repeat it today. I'm going to let you go back to your slides and go check them out. There are 4 values of agile. I've been saying it in the last classes, but I won't repeat them today again. So what you need to know that while there are 4 values of agile, there are many practices of agile, many practices. Now, the same way, what I showed you guys earlier on, I said to you that whenever you think about the word agile methodology, think about the fact that whatever religion you believe in, there are core principles of every religion, core principles or core values. Now, and every religion has sects. However, the core principle that supports all of the sects is the same. The core is the same. You get what I mean? Now, the sect of a religion, S-E-C-T, sect, are the practices of agile. And these practices include Scrum, Kanban, Lean technology, XP, and all that you have. What you need to understand is that while there are many practices of agile, whenever you get to combine practices, the one I love to bring to the table very easily is when you combine Scrum with Kanban. You've combined two Kanban agile practices. Whenever you combine that to deliver value, it is called discipline agile. I hope that makes sense, guys. Please get in the chat box and engage with me a bit more. Let me know if you understand what I'm talking about, and if you don't understand where you are having problems. I'll repeat it one more time. Let me read the text first. It says, a hybrid tool that harnesses agile practices, agile, lean, and traditional sources to guide you to the best way of working for your project, for your team or organization. So it harnesses practices to help guide you on the best way of work. Chanel says she does not understand. Chanel, where exactly don't you understand? Which of the subjects? Martina is fine. Chanel, where can I help you so that I can come back?
I never said that. That was probably a question you asked.
Okay, you said no. Okay, that was an old feedback.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so one more time, I'm just reiterating this for the sake of those who missed out. I'm saying that there are different practices of Agile, and whenever you combine them to guide you into working for a particular organization or a project, it's called discipline Agile. Now, a product owner creates we'll talk about most of these, MBIs. Who remembers what MBIs mean? Minimum business increment. Who remembers? MBI. Everything that we have touched on it. Who remembers what MBI means? Minimum business increment. Who remembers what MVP is? Minimum valuable product. The little nuances of project management that you must not forget, guys. Okay, minimum viable, is it that you don't remember, or you want me to, or you remember but you don't want to talk? Guys, which of them am I running with? What do I believe? You remember, you don't want to talk, or you don't remember at all? Hello? God help me. Where are you guys? Are we tired? Hello? Hello?
Yes, Hunter.
I can't see the screen. I do recall it from the class Mawa said. Abdurrahman, I can't see the screen. I know you can't see the screen yet. I'm trying to share it. It's gone off. Can you see the screen now? My question, I don't remember, but understand now. I don't remember, but understand now. Okay. A quick one, just to remind you guys, well, please go back to your planning, the planning slides again. I think we shared it earlier. I think so. The MVP, minimum viable product. In Agile, let's say we are the new Amazon. Remember Amazon when they launched their web e-commerce website? Who remembers Amazon many years ago when they launched their e-commerce website? If you can remember Amazon when they launched their e-commerce website for the very first time, then you would appreciate the fact that it's not the same website that they have today that they had many years ago. They've added new features to enrich the website. Yes, so the very first website they launched, which was the minimum viable product, as in the first one, what they could put together and launch into the market, which is called the minimum viable product, is called, the first one they took to market is called the minimum viable product. Now, for every iteration, what they did was what? They also took, they identified features and functions they could add to their website that will help them sell more or help them reach or engage customers a whole lot more. Every feature and function they added to their word, for every iteration, the features and functions they added to improve their offerings is what you call what? MBI, minimum business increment. Think about MVP as being iPhone 4, the very first iteration of iPhone. And then think about the features they added and the functions they added before they built iPhone 5 as what? MBI, minimum business increment. For every iteration, they added a few features and functions, which is a new set of what? MBIs. All right, please review the planning notes. To be fair to you, if you review the initiation notes, the planning notes, and the execution notes, you're going to have a deep understanding around project management. Most of yesterday and today is revising what we've done already. However, in different contexts. All right, let's continue. And the next thing we're going to touch on today is called evaluate the internal and the external business environment. How do we do that? Let's see. Okay, what are the considerations here? We're going to see all of them. Let's move faster. In the internal environment, you see, a project can be affected by both the internal and the external environment. In the internal environment, a particular organizational change can affect a project. Let me give you a very good example. When the UK were looking out for Brexit, when they were trying to get Brexit on the way, this lady, the lady was a prime minister, she had to step down. And then Boris Johnson took over and had someone that had the will to push through with Brexit, you know. Now, immediately he went on the drive and then pushed through with what? Brexit. Now, a change in organization, this is just in terms of a country now. It might be a leadership change, it might be a process change, but it has an impact, it could have an impact on the scope or even on a project. Sometimes you change leadership in an organization and they kill a project. They completely kill a project. The next thing we're going to look at the fact that the project manager and the project sponsor needs to have visibility into the business plans, reorganization, process changes, and other internal activities. Generally, what you need to understand here is a change in the business or in the organization that is sponsoring this project could completely either affect, make, mar, or even stall a project. Likewise, changes that are external to the environment could also affect the organization. What are the changes that would affect an organization externally? It's often lumped up in the word called PESTEL. There are other acronyms that can help you. But I like the PESTEL a whole lot better. And it says political problems, economic problems, social problems, technology problems, legal problems, and environmental problems. Right in front of you, you have a list of different types of political problems, as well as economic problems, social problems, technological problems, legal problems, and environmental problems, all of which could affect your project. Let's take, for instance, the current political war between Russia and Ukraine, and its impact on Europe, the Europe energy. I don't know if you guys are monitoring the situation. So another interesting thing to look at, will you call it a political, where would you put it? Political, legal, economic, social, or environmental? Where would you want to class that? And because that could affect all of the industries across Europe. Where would you want to put that? Economic, social, technology, legal? Now it's up to you to begin to put that in context and see how will these affect your business. You know, now it's also affecting a whole lot more. The food bank of Europe and also most of Africa and across the world is Ukraine. Now, grains are no longer coming out from Ukraine any longer because of what? The war. Where would you class that? That can affect your business because of what? The inflation happening all around the world. Do you have to raise the salary of your staffs? These are concerns. You need to also pay attention to those concerns happening across the world and how they affect your project. All right, let's go. Because of this, what do I need to know? I need to have a clear governance structure. Projects need to have a clear governance structure. What do the governance structure do? Now, these are people that, don't forget, they superintend projects to ensure that changes that are made, whenever a change is requested on a project, they look at the impact of that change, both in terms of the internal and the external business environment. I hope that makes sense, everyone. A clear governance structure becomes critical when project changes are driven by changes in the internal or external business environment. So they superintend it to ensure that changes that are made do not affect either negatively or positively a project or the outcomes of a project. So another name for what a project, the project governance structure, another name for it is called the Governance Steering Committee. So they coordinate the project. They might include, that's people that include the project sponsor, senior users, and the PMO. They are responsible for what? Re-clarifying the charter, the objectives, and allocating resources to the project. They are also responsible for what? Managing changes. All right, let's keep going. What are the three things that you do when a project change happens? Three things you do when a project change happens. Now, when you are looking at your project tomorrow or by next week, it would be interesting to also see if there was a change that happened along the way. If there was a change that happened along the way, what were the things you did? How did you react to change? I would love to see issues around change, how you manage change. Or did you have a governance structure to manage change? If not, how did it really pan out? Or you just allow change to happen like that? I would also be interested to see your tripartite triangle, how you manage all of that and ensure that you didn't get into trouble. Okay. So when changes happen, three things you do. Three. The very first one is what you call backlog reprioritization. Backlog reprioritization. Let me give you an example, a very good example. When COVID happened, most of you completely reprioritized your life. You know, nobody was going to shop again every 2 or 3 days to get new clothes to wear for functions because there were no functions, you know. Now, most of you also took to what? Exercise. Most people took to movies. Most joined like a quiz group. There were a lot of things you were not doing before that you became a part of. Why? Because a change happened. Now, Also, for the learning industry, all of a sudden, we realize the power of what? Remote learning. So we also moved into remote learning. Now, that's called what? Backlog reprioritization. You move things that were not really priority before and make them become what? Priority. The next thing is what? Update baselines. Like we touched on earlier when we're doing planning, baselines changes. What is baselines? The approved scope, the approved cost, and the approved schedules. Huh? Because you have actually reprioritized backlogs, then schedules might change. And likewise, the new thing you are adding to the change that the change has come to make will affect your baseline. So you might need more money, you might need more time, you might need more resources. So you would update baselines. Now, and then the last one is what? Recommend options for change. When change is proposed, the product owner should focus on the intended business value of the change. I hope that makes sense. What's the intended value of this change? What is it adding to the table? And give the project team a discretion to consider the change and identify potential solution options. So it's now also the last thing you do as a PM is to give the team the power, the discretion to find solutions for every change. Okay. Fourth, which is the second to the last before to the end of today, you support organizational change. We touched on this earlier, how Kodak refused to support organizational change. So let's see. What do you need to consider if you are someone who wants to support organizational change? What are the things you need to consider? What is the view of leadership, hierarchy, and authority? The view of leadership, the view of hierarchy, and the view of authority. I'll tell you a little story about this. Okay, I think today, or earlier today, I was talking to a child and I said to him, go speak nicely to this person and you're going to get, and when you go there, speak very nicely. Call the person several sweet names and then the person is going to oblige your request instead of you quarreling and making a show out of nothing. The child gave it a shot and walked to the person and started calling the person nice names. And the person consented and gave him what he was asking for. You see, there is a price for every person. Let's say you're working in an environment, and let's say we are all working in Kodak. I'm sure when senior management refused to promote the digital technology of the guys who founded digital photography, they were angry and perhaps walked away. What if they went to him and went to senior management and said, senior management, we know you don't really believe in this endeavor, but we're asking for only 1% of your income to be applied to this endeavor. Nevertheless, we will ensure that we keep working on this project, and then let's see what happens in the past. There is a way to present a matter if you want to get positives from people. So shared beliefs, find out what is the shared belief and expectation. What is the risk tolerance? We've discussed that at length. Understand what are the regulations, the policies and the procedures that happens in that environment. The code of conduct, operating environment. What is the motivation and the reward system? We touched on this yesterday. What motivates management? Sometimes find out what motivates them. And then use that to push whatever you're pushing that will help them get a way around it. Okay. Now, organizational structures. An interesting topic to touch on before we move closer to the very end. As a project manager or someone who is interested in this field of knowledge, One thing that I must enjoin you to understand is that there are two kinds of environments people work in. One environment is what you call the projectized or project-oriented environment. Project-oriented environment. In the introductory part of your project on next week, I would like to see if your environment was a project-oriented or a functionally or was done in a project-oriented environment or in a functional environment. What's the difference? If you've ever gone to a building site or a computer software company is actually a very project-driven organization. Why? In those environments, things are done based on projects. So there is a project on the table. Because there is a project on the table, they will set a project manager and then they will give him a team to work with to deliver that project. Make sense? Now the team is very much loyal, fully loyal to the project manager, because if he recommends that you should be removed, you will be removed. And you will be removed from the company. Now, but if you've ever been to the government parastatals, like the ministries, the agencies of government, what you often have there as an example is a functional system. Because what you have there is more like this. You have different units. You have the operations unit, you have the finance unit, you have the commercial unit, you have the advertising unit. So, and each of these units have what? Heads of units, heads of units. So everybody reports to their head. People are loyal to what? Their heads of units. Now, for promotions and all that, it's your head of unit that does it for you, that approves for promotion. So if there is a project in such organizations, what often happens is this. They will appoint a project manager and then they will select people from what? Other units to go and join in that project. However, the people come into those projects but are still very loyal to their own, what do you call it? Heads of unit. In that case, it's called a matrix organization. Why is it called a matrix organization? Because the people are what? Loyal to what? One area while they are working in another area. So they are working on projects, but they are loyal to what? Their heads of unit. I hope that makes sense. One is functional, the other one is project oriented, and then a mix of both worlds are called what? Matrix. I hope that makes sense for every one of you. Please hit me on the chat box if you don't understand that. Now, what are the few mechanisms that support change in an organization? I'm going to rush through this. It's something that you already understand. We read it in our first class. The very first mechanism that supports change in an organization, it's called the PMO, the Project Management Office. Now, this is the mechanism that helps to support change. Why? They are the one that manage projects. And because they manage projects, they've been able to collect a lot of lessons learned, and they can effectively use those lessons to support change. How do they go about supporting this change? The one way they go about supporting change is through what? Training. So they set a training plan. They set a training plan and they go out there and train people so that the people can buy into the change. The next way that you support change in an organization is through what you call a rollout plan. A rollout plan. What's a rollout plan? Most times you notice that before organizations, or let's look for a very simple one, artists, music artists, before they release a song, what they do is what? They go out there and they say, anticipate. They put a flyer of the song and tell you to anticipate that song, that song is coming, and it will drop on the 17th of October. What they've done is to what? Create hunger in you to receive that thing. So you're now looking forward to it. Now that's exactly what a rollout plan looks like. You set plans and share the plans in the organization, because people now begin to become hungry to see those things come to pass. What they do is that they embrace it better when they happen. All right, let's keep going. Now, when also changes happen, one of the things that you need to do to help support change is use of demos. I think we've talked about that earlier. People can relate, like if you see a demo, you can give feedback very easily. Ask for what you want to be changed, and then it could be changed easily and what have you. Then the last one is what? Project management plan updates. Whenever there is a change, an approved change, that's the word, approved change, then you need to make updates to the project management plan. That document becomes what? An effective tool that will help others, so that even if your team is virtual, because of the updated project management plan, change is fluid, very fluid. And here we come to the very last part of today's class, which is the need to employ continuous process improvement. It's simply what it says it is. Commit yourself to growing. This is an ongoing process effort to improve, one, the product, two, the services, three, the processes. Now, the Institute of Quality Assurance defines it as a commitment to improve strategy, result, the customer, employee, and even supplier relationship. So this is all round. Continuous improvement is really all round. Okay. It aims for small incremental improvements or large breakthroughs. Small incremental improvement or large breakthroughs. It's a business strategy and is developed at the organizational level to adopt and use. So yes, process improvement is actually not a project-based thing. Most times it's an organizational-based thing. And I'm sure we're going to see a few before we leave, particularly with Toyota was the biggest, I think the Japanese have been the biggest in this regard. They've been the biggest in this regard. Might be implemented by an organization's PMO. So the PMO often, because it's an organizational-led thing, so the PMOs are often the leaders when it comes to what? This kind of projects. All right. Here are a few theories. I wouldn't bore you with them, particularly if you are not going to write an exam, don't bother about them. But if you're writing a project management exam, engage with this, and then you will be able to answer any questions that come from these theories. These are theories that were founded by a number of folks, scholars, in regards to what? Process improvement theories. So there are 6 of them. Writing an exam, please read them over and again and be sure you get yourself acquainted with all of them so that you can effectively pass your exams. Here is where I want to stop. Continuous improvement approach. That's a Japanese word. It's called Kaizen. It's a Japanese word. It means the making of small changes or improvement. It actually it started out with Toyota. Toyota is the biggest in the industry. that, would I say, brought this to the fore when it comes to project management. Now, it also says small changes less likely to require major expenditure of capital. Because when you're doing small changes, you may not necessarily be spending a lot. When you're doing big changes, you will spend a whole lot. So it works for you if you're beginning to do smaller changes. And these changes are not necessarily like you go get a consultant, not necessarily. These changes come from workers within your team. So they're like advising within a team and say, let's add this 1 or 2 things. It will spice up this. And you're like, all right, let's give it a try. All employees should continually improve their own performance. You see that? Small incremental changes, starting out from where? Not externally, but internally. And all of them are encouraged to take ownership of their work to improve motivation. What's the process? It's called the plan, do, act. Do, study, and act. So you plan, you do what you've planned, you study the outcome of what you've done, and then you act. If there were issues you need to correct, you correct. If there were things you need to add value to, you add value to, and then you go back and replan for phase 2 and go. That is a circle of plan, do, study, and act. Thank you very much. Can I take your questions if there are any? The tools for continuous improvement. Lessons learned, retrospection, and experiments. I'm very sure you all understand those tools. I don't remember, but I understand now. Okay, I wanted to ask, are we required to produce 2 documents, a PDF and a PowerPoint presentation? Okay, I'll answer all. All right, thank you. And I'm going to be stopping this